Today's episode, I want to talk about passive security that you can use for your property or your home. I'm going to start with driveways. Imagine your house is here, and this is a main road. Say it's a highway or a county road that goes through where you live, and you want to be able to get to your house. Most times people would do a straight driveway, or they would do something like this. The issue with when you do that kind of driveway, a straight line or a straight line with a little bit of an angle to it, is if you have a threat or someone that wants to rob you, something like that, someone that's coming up, they can build up a lot of speed going that way, and they use their vehicle as a weapon. And when you change from a straight line, and yes, you doing a right angle would slow someone down at the 90-degree turn, but then you would still get a straight shot to your house. One thing you can do is you can do kind of a serpentine course. What this does is it requires someone to slow down in these turns, and then as they get to your house, the driveway will turn slightly right before the house. That way, even this turn, they can't build up a lot of speed. One thing you can do on top of that, because you could say, well, what if you just drive straight across? What if it's a field or the desert or something like that? One way to approach that is you go along on both sides and you place hard objects. Something that looks natural. You can do trees or boulders. And you do it this whole way. And this is going to do a couple different things. One thing it's going to do is it's going to slow someone down, and it's going to force them to slow down. They can't just go where they want to. The other thing this is going to do is help with sight lines. If someone is driving down the street, and look over here, and this is a regular wooded area, right? It's not just a bunch of trees around a driveway, then they'll look out and all they'll see is just more trees. Because your structure, whether it's your home or business, whatever it is going to be masked by this set of trees. And that will also work against you, right? Because you can't see out here. But that's easily solved. Put one camera out here, two cameras, and then immediately you can see what's going on the street from people turning off onto your driveway. One other issue is if there is a threat, say there's a wildfire, that's pretty realistic, and say this is a very long driveway. Well, you have to leave immediately, or say there's a medical emergency and you need to leave right now, right? You can do something like have a secondary means of egress that goes out and then leads to a different road, that then connects back to this road, or however the roads in your area work. In here, you can have more straight lines, and you can get out more because you'll know about it. This secondary means of egress can be disguised. You can have it as a field with a layer of rock on the bottom, large rock that can handle vehicle traffic. You can do any kind of camouflage you can think for a natural road. If you live in a desert area, then just make it desert, right? But then go back and make sure there are no vehicle tracks that are worn in on a regular basis. Don't use this road unless you absolutely have to. But at the same time, go back and make sure that you've gone through, that it's maintained, that there aren't holes that are forming. There's no animal deciding to make its home on the road. Make sure that you can still drive on with a vehicle. Make sure there's not a sinkhole forming underneath it or something like that. Another thing to look at is location of your actual house or property in relation to population centers. If you work in the city, then you're kind of stuck there. Unless you have the ability to live away from the city center and commute in, or telecommute, however your job is, or you just live in the country, then you don't have to worry about large populations. One major concern is that as soon as there's a disaster that you can think of, Katrina or Ferguson or something along those manners, because they're two very different things, so they have a similar result in that people panic, there's a lack of resources coming in, and whether natural or man-made, there's a threat that you need to be able to be self-sufficient for an extended period of time. And when there is a lack of when there's a lack of supplies and a lack of communication, a lack of water, like I've said in other videos, people get scared. And you don't want to be someone that's there that might have food or even a cheap lantern that's on, but it's a lantern that someone else does not have. And you want to make sure that you're far away from those population centers. Having ponds or rivers, natural water boundaries that are large, those allow you to keep a barrier that you don't have to really maintain that much. You don't have to go back and look at it and make sure you can drive across, because you're not going to drive across a river or a pond. And it gives you a good wide buffer for that kind of stuff. If you're on top of a hill, if you're looking at property or your house is, or you're looking at building a house on property you already have, one thing to want to remember is the top of that hill is a beacon, right? Because if you have lights or a fire or something else, those are all things that people can see for a long way away. And you don't want to be that light in the darkness that people are going to want to come to, because then you're going to have thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, it depends how big of an area you live next to. And one thing you can do is, instead of building at the very top of the hill, you want to build near the top of the hill, but below the treetop line. That way, if someone's looking out over a vast distance, they see trees, they don't see your lights. And they also, you can run a generator, and those trees act as a baffle almost, and can reduce noise pretty well. And that'll give you more security from an audible standpoint. I hope this helped a little bit. I want to get the concept out there that you don't have to have a 20-foot wall, and you don't have to have attack dogs. You can use landscaping. And this isn't just for a bug out location or a place out in the middle of nowhere. You can also use some of these in urban settings, in your garden next to your home. And you can use these boulders, or you can get planters that are pretty hefty, that are pretty big. And they're concrete and steel reinforced, and they're actually in the ground. They're actually using large bolts or rebar to secure them to the concrete or the ground. That way, when a car is coming, that car, instead of just crashing through a planter, that planter is a bollard, like what you see in front of stores, and that will act as a stop for that vehicle. And it'll slow them down or stop them. And a boulder is the same principle. So you don't have to be on the middle of the country. If you live on a busy street, I think these are great ideas, because there are drunk drivers everywhere. And all of us know someone at some point that has had a drunk driver go through their driveway or through a friend's driveway and hit their car or hit their house or almost killed someone. And if not, you can find an article really quick on the news somewhere. And these are good passive security things you can do. You don't have to keep working on it over and over again. You get a boulder and then you just put it there, 2 or 3 feet tall and 3 or 4 feet wide, and just leave it. You don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to water it or anything. Same thing with the planter. When winter comes, the plants could die, but that planter is still going to be there. And these are just really good things that I think every piece of property or home should think about or have. Thanks for watching.